The text that we are going to start today is called Śukāṣṭakam. Okay? I want you to repeat that because I'll tell you why. Śukāṣṭakam. Can you repeat that? It is Sh, because, yesterday I had gone to some program, Aim for Seva program, and people said to me, "Oh, you're taking Śukāṣṭakam." Means an octet of 8 verses about happiness, Sukha, Yeah. Not that this is not going to lead you to Sukha, that's not the point. But we have to see what it is. It is Śukāṣṭakam. Ashtaka, octet. Composed by or belonging to, connected to Shukadeva. Yeah. Śukāṣṭakam. It's kind of a mouthful if you have like having marbles in the mouth. Yeah. So, this is, these 8 verses that will be unfolded during the course of this week actually talk about the nature of the jnāni. Jnāni means what? A person of knowledge. Nature of the jnāni is going to be talked about in great detail. And this is, as we know, this is a topic of curiosity, One is very curious, not because of anything, because one is curious because one is a jnāni wannabe. Yeah, that is why one is curious. The jnāni wannabe wants to know what the jnāni is like. And in fact, this is in the Bhagavad Gita. See, I told you it's all the same. Yeah. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks a question. What does he say? Sthita prajñasya ka bhasha? Sthitadhihi kim prabhasheta? Kim asita? Prajeta kim? Who is this person of knowledge? What knowledge? How do they behave? I want to make them out in a crowd. Yeah, this is how it is because, I want to go, ajnani, jnani. I want to make them out in a crowd because then it's so much easier. Then I don't have to get confused by somebody pretending to be a jnani or somebody who is not a jnani, something. And therefore, give me some, things that he got his notebook out. Yeah, Arjuna. And give me, or his palm leaf out, and said, give me some characteristics that I can unequivocally, categorically write down. What does a jnani do? What does a jnani not do? How to distinguish, pick out a jnani. Like when you go buy vegetables, pick out the best eggplant. Let me pick out the jnani. And his question, of course, is worded in a way that shows his jñāsa, his desire to know, his shraddha, because he sees that there are some people called jnanis, and this is what I want to be, so I would like to be able to recognize them. And we also see that, sometimes when we ask questions, there is a difficulty in wording the questions. Little difficulty is there. And what was this difficulty? Because the only thing the difficulty here is that, one is not able to understand the jnani outwardly. That was the problem. He was wanting some outward characteristics in terms of walk, talk, food habits, sleeping habits, etc., which have nothing to do with Atma-jnanam. But Lord Krishna understands the spirit of the question and then gives a certain, series of verses in the form of answers. He gives the definition of a jnani. He talks about how to recognize the jnani completely, no problem at all, but not through outward characteristics such as Vesha, Bhusha, etc. What they wear, how they eat, how they behave, that's how they walk, how they talk. Not on the level of personality, but on the level of unfolding the nature of the Purusha, the person. This is what the verses are. And those verses for us are very, very helpful. Because in commenting on those verses, Adi Shankara says that these verses, who is reading these verses? Is the jnāni reading these verses? No. Because the jnāni doesn't need a checklist of who the person is. Did you wear orange? Check. Did you do this? Check. Prajahati yada kaman, do you have vairagya? Check. Do you have viveka? Check. The jnāni doesn't need a checklist. Correct? So who needs the checklist? The ajnāni also doesn't need a checklist, because an ajnāni who's not a mumukshu, who's not a jignasu, who's not a seeker of knowledge, doesn't need this checklist. This checklist will be useless because the person is, not interested in the knowledge. So who is this checklist of what constitutes a jnāni for? The checklist is for the one who is aspiring, who is a sādhaka, a mumukshu, a jignasu, aspiring to be a jnāni. This is who the checklist is for. And so Adi Shankara points this out in that particular, commentary for that particular section. And he says something important. He says, the lakshanani, the definitions of a jnāni, are the stepping stones in the form of sādhanā, practices for the jnāni, for the one who wants to be a jnāni. For the sadhaka, a mumukshu, a jignasu, it is very helpful to know what is jnanam and who is the jnāni, so that one can fashion one's life after the life of a jnāni and follow those practices, even if they are not perfected at the beginning. At least follow the practices, and alongside the knowledge, one assimilates this as a way of life. So too here, in this, in this octet called Śukāṣṭakam, the same principle follows. The Śukāṣṭakam is not for the jnanis, it's not for ajnanis, because it's a description of what constitutes a person of knowledge. Because such things are very, very important. And then following the section on the Bhagavad Gita, there are certain works that talk about the nature of the person of self-knowledge. Notable amongst them, Śukāṣṭakam, one of them. And another one is also an octet, worth studying. Sometime we should do that. Dhanyāṣṭakam. Dhanyaha means the blessed ones. Even though dhanyavad in Hindi and dhanyavadaha in, in the news means thank you. Here it's not about thankfulness. It is about a feeling of blessedness, feeling blessed. Dhanya means the most auspicious and the blessed ones. Dhanya also means the ones who have, there's nothing more to seek. Kritakrityaha ityarthaha. They are already, the seeker is the sort they have known, they are the dhanyas. Because otherwise you can't feel blessed and you can't feel like the pursuit is complete. If there is something more to gain, if there is something more to know. So dhanya means what? One who has finished the work for which the human incarnation was taken. And the only work, the only purpose of human incarnation, primary purpose, and in fact I would even say the only purpose, is the gain of self-knowledge. That is the only purpose. And so, dhanyaha, these are liberated beings. So we have dhanyāṣṭakam. And then we have another work also discussing the jnanis. This is in the form of a panchakam, Panchaka means what? Quintet, 5 verses. And then there is one Yati Panchakam. Yati Panchakam, another, verse of 5 verses in the praise of those renunciants who have gained this knowledge and how they move in the world, It is also called Kaupina Panchakam. Kaupina means loin cloth. Because the refrain is like that, Kaupinavantaha khalu bhagyavantaha. Bhagyavantaha means the most auspicious ones, the most lucky ones are who? Those who possess a loin cloth. So when I taught this, in the satsang there was a question from one young adult. So if I go and get a loin cloth, will I also be bhagyavan? Then I had to specify. Those who possess only a loin cloth. Not that you have a nice walk-in closet full of, clothes, and then you also have one loin cloth. That's not the idea. That Kaupina is a upalakshana, is a metaphor for vairagya. Okay? Yeah. Those who only possess the bare necessities of life. Kaupinavantaha khalu bhagyavantaha. Then to a certain extent, even another Panchakam, attributed to Adi Shankara, Manisha Panchakam, also falls in this category of describing the jnanis. The famous quintet, Adi Shankara's Gacha Gacha moment, where, the story goes that he encountered a funeral groundskeeper, Chandala, when he came out of the Ganga bath on the Varanasi, one of the ghats. And then, the followers must have said, I can't imagine Adi Shankara saying this, Gacha Gacha, great Guru coming out of the water, part the ways. And the Chandala was a big surprise, a wild card. And the Chandala, a big surprise Chandala, who was a jnani, yes. And who says, what are you gaching from whom? Who are you saying gacha gacha from who? Is it one body saying gacha gacha to another body because this body is what? Also finite, that body is also finite, this body, product of 5 elements, that body, did not fall down from the sky, it is also a product of 5 elements. This body perishable, aging, subject to 6 vikaras, birth, death, old age, etc., disease. That body also do that. Or if you're not talking of the body, if you're talking of the indweller of the body, shame on you, because that is just one and the same. At least on the level of bodies you can count. But the indweller being one, who is going away from what? So that is also, you can say, the behavior, not so much behavior, the characteristics of a jnani are mentioned in this. These are some of the things that I can think of the top of the head. Just to show that there is an abiding precedence in this tradition of works that talk about the jnani. Because this is the jnani is a subject matter of great reverence and curiosity. And so Shuka is, this Śukāṣṭakam is one more such work that falls in these kinds of works that we have just discussed and talked about by way of introducing this text, by not so much introducing the text, by contextualizing where this text falls. It is rarely taught. It is rarely taught, not because it is difficult to understand. It is rarely taught because, it is very ancient and none of the scholars can agree on which verse comes after which verse. There are several versions. 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8, like this. Like this. Or we don't know which one. The first verse everybody agrees on, thank God, yeah. So there is a common starting point, but after that there is disagreement among the scholars, what follows what. And since it is such an ancient text, there is also some, problem with truti. Truti means dropping of some words in between. Because in those days there were no Xerox machines. In fact, there were Xerox machines. They were called brahmacharis, that's all. Transcribers, scribes, yeah. And so the brahmachari had to copy down with the help of a stencil that had to be held like this in a very awkward way, copy down all this word to word. This is how copies were made. And this is how all the brahmacharis. And so one or two words would be dropped. That is one explanation for a few words being dropped. Or the other explanation is ajabhakshanam. Aja means what? Don't say a Brahman. Here it is not Brahman. Aja means unborn. Here it is not Brahman. We are talking of goat. Yeah. Ajabhakshitam, you could not keep the manuscripts unguarded for a minute. Along would come a hungry fellow, and goats are always hungry, very obliging. And then it just picked off the last piece of the page before it was, rescued from the mouth of the goat. And then a few words were not, and the brahmachari made it up with something else. So this is another reason, and that messed with the meter. And these are a couple of reasons why I can think why this is not, this is kind of rarely taught. So, a few things we can move from here, to the author. Author's life itself is shrouded in mystery. Shukadeva is kind of a reverential mystery. And even there is no agreement, because Shuka appears in the Mahabharata, in the Srimad Bhagavatam as the narrator of the Srimad Bhagavatam composed by his father, sage Vyasa. So Shuka is regarded as his son. Shuka also appears in the Devi Bhagavata Purana. And then, when you read the Devi Bhagavata Purana version of Shuka and the Mahabharata version of Shuka, it's almost like they're talking of two different peoples. Two different people. The Shuka that we know and who authored this text was seen as an extreme, renunciant. Vairagya he had. And he had, he left house when he was very small, never came back, and all this that we know. And then the Shuka in the Devi Bhagavata Purana is married with children, 4 children, and who all become sages. And then he himself is very learned, and then he gets moksha, he's enlightened and learned. This is the Shuka there. This is completely different, opposite traditions. Completely different tradition, stories. I can understand if there are a few extrapolations, Like even in Adi Shankara's life, you see this Shankara Vijaya seen from different standpoints. There are some stories here and there that are added on perhaps, or something happens. But, in one he is married with children, he is a grihastha. In the other he is a sannyasi. You cannot really, put the two together. So then I thought this must be two different people. But I decided to dig a little bit further and found another version of this story, where when Shuka was leaving the house, what happened? The parents got very anxious and upset and distraught because he was small and he was leaving the house. To appease them, he cloned himself. Yeah. So he cloned himself. And then what happened after cloning himself? The original took off to lead a life of an enlightened being, and the clone stayed back to raise a family. What was the name of the one who stayed back? Shuka. After all, that's a clone, so same name. And then, the clone also got liberated because really, it's the one and the same. Along walks, in walks an Atithi, Narada. And he's very, diplomatic. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, he says. If he goes to Vaikuntha, he says Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. Diplomatic. He comes and says Om Namah Shivaya. And one more place is set for him. Coffee is also kept. And Narada is, got a bad reputation among us earthlings. What is his reputation? Troublemaker. Very unfair, I tell you. Yeah. Narada is a truth serum, not a troublemaker. He tells it as it is, but because one is not ready to hear, we come to the conclusion that he is a troublemaker. He is not a troublemaker. So, he started to have the coffee, and by way of conversation, leans over to Parvati and says, "Don't you agree that people who are married and sharing so much love as you both do should not keep any secrets from one another?" She said, yes, of course. But why are you saying this first thing in the morning? Mum is the word. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and he goes away. And Parvati has a very bad day, and a bad night. Can't sleep at night at all. And because she can't sleep, she hears Lord Shiva mumbling something. Actually, he's saying Aham Brahmasmi in his sleep. But she doesn't know that. She just keeps hearing Brahma, Brahma, Brahma summing up. Shiva finds there is no coffee. Yeah. No coffee. Parvati's mood is offy. Yeah. Ab kya kare? What to do now? And he says, Priye, what happened? Yesterday you were so happy. Today now, no coffee. What happened? She says, well, you are keeping some secrets from me. No, I have no secrets. No, you were mumbling some name, Brahma, Brahma. Oh, I must have been saying Aham Brahmasmi. See, I don't know what that is. That is a secret. You have to tell me this secret. Shiva happily agrees. Yes, I will be your teacher. I will teach you this secret, not a problem at all. But Shiva is an experienced teacher of Vedanta, and so puts only two conditions in front of her. First condition, after every 2-3 lines, you should say, doesn't mean mango, mango. No, okay. That is only in Hindi. In Sanskrit means what? Yes. As soon as the teacher opens the mouth, And so therefore what? Therefore I want to, because Shiva has had this experience and doesn't want to waste his time talking to people who are going to be asleep. And also being married to Parvati, he knows her nature. And so he says, you have to keep saying, yes, yes, yes. This is the condition. And if you stop saying yes, 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 what will happen? I will stop teaching. Give me the biggest secret that you have kept from me. How will I go to sleep? I'm very interested in this. I'm not going to go to sleep. Please tell me. He says, okay, here goes. And he starts teaching some Upanishad. First few arms are very enthusiastic. Badham, Badham. Badham means yes, so be it. And then, gone. Going, gone. But strangely, the arm continues. And Shiva, who is in a trance, closing his eyes and teaching, that's why he wanted her to keep saying He was in a trance teaching. So he doesn't, he doesn't think anything. Because the Parvati's arm and this new arm that is coming out is the same voice. And the story has it that an egg fell from the nest of a parrot, rolled onto the ground, and a baby parrot hatched. And when still in the egg, the baby parrot heard Shiva's condition, Lord Shiva's condition. What was the condition? You have to keep saying And the baby thought, this lady, lazy lady, has gone to sleep. And I don't want this wonderful teaching to stop. So it mimicked her voice and said, Shiva went on teaching. Then he came out of the trance, end of the Upanishad, and he found to his shock a deeply asleep Parvati right in front of him. And he said, who is this who is saying this baby parrot that had not yet learned to fly, kind of hopping along, rolling over, and then coming closer to hear the teaching. And by the time the teaching had finished, it had grown and was ready to fly. And Shiva sees this parrot and he rushes to catch it. The baby, this parrot doesn't know anything. One thing if it knows is that you don't want Lord Shiva to be chasing you. That much it knows. It runs and then it finally learns to fly awkwardly at first, like a plane in turbulence, and then finally it takes off. Shiva also flies behind it. And then it goes in the village, finds an open door. By this time it is lunchtime. Lunch has been just finished in Vyasa's household. And there they have feasted on mangoes and some other sweet things, payasam, etc. And then Mrs. Vyasa gets a sugar loaf and gives a big yawn. A full stomach, big yawn. The parrot flies into the mouth. And via the mouth goes and sits in her womb. And Vyasa says, what just happened? And she says, we have good news. Your desire for a baby is going to be fulfilled, my Lord. And, oh, is that so? That's wonderful. And Shiva comes raging in. Did you see the parrot? Yeah, but I think, now it is my baby. My wife is expecting this baby. And he says, no, I want to make sure that this parrot deserves Atma Jnanam because it should not be given to anybody and everybody. It was meant for Parvati. And if Parrotpati gained this knowledge, this is not okay. I want to find out who this is, whether this parrot he is qualified or not. Vyasa says, are you listening to yourself? Yeah. If you gave it to somebody undeserving, then the knowledge is safe with you. And if you gave it to somebody deserving, the knowledge is safe with them. What are you talking about? Go home. And Shiva goes. You know, that's what happens when you start chasing parrots without coffee, you know. And then he goes back. And then the expectant parents tell the parrot, please come out, grace us with this, you know, baby, and you are ours. The parrot says, I'm not going to be born. What do you mean you're not going to be born? The parrot says, I'm a jnāni. I have gained knowledge from none other than Lord Shiva. And it is clearly stated in the Upanishad that people of knowledge don't take birth. Therefore, I'm not going to be born. No birth for me. And they say, no, please don't do that. You can benefit so many people. Please be born. See, your mother has knitted a nice little sweater for you. And your father has made a little cradle. He says, see, this is exactly what is samsara. The parrot is talking, the parrot who has now turned into a child. Don't ask how, okay? Yeah. Not even in satsang. Okay, so then the parrot turned into a child, you know, says, you see, this is what I call samsara. You didn't even know who I was. I'm not even stayed in your house, in your womb for 5 minutes. I'm here for less than 10 minutes and you've already started to develop, you know, moha, a deluded, dysfunctional attachment you call love. I'm not coming out. You know? Because it's only going to get worse after I'm born. I want to remain a jnāni if I'm born. That's my condition. So then Vyasa says, okay, I will leave the house. And I will tie your mother's eyes so that she doesn't set her eyes on you and so that she doesn't feel a lot of love for you. Dysfunctional love. So under those conditions, he is born as a child. But he is called Shuka. That is how he gains the name parrot, because of this previous life as a parrot. Then when he is very small, he says, I don't see the purpose of living in the house. I'm going to leave the house. The parents have a fit. You are so small, you need us. He says, I don't need you. All right. Vyasa says, let me rephrase that. We need you. He says, all you have to do is call out to me and I'll be there. And this is the blessing of Shukadeva, as he was known. He flew away because that parrot vritti was there. He could fly, he was all pervasive. And he would only show up when there was tīvra ichha, strong desire for what? Moksha. Because he was a teacher of self-knowledge. He would not come, please, oh Lord, send me a BMW. Shuka, please come. He would not come. I want self-knowledge. Come. He would come. He would be there. And like this, this is the story. The same Shuka who narrates the Srimad Bhagavata to Parikshit, because Parikshit has been cursed by a snake. By a sage because of a snake. We are not sure. Some people say he was cursed by the snake itself. Because the story goes that he saw a sage in meditation and Parikshit was suffering from PTSD after fighting this battle and was the only survivor. He had seen so much war and destruction and death. And suffering from PTSD, you can do crazy things. He sees this sage in meditation and not being content. Conveniently, one snake is slithering around, takes the snake and ties it on the neck of the sage. And the sage opens the eyes and the snake is saying hello with its tongue 2 inches from the sage's face. So it's not clear. It's not a curse. It is karma phala. Instant karma phala for whatever was done for this naughty action, irresponsible action. He attracted a curse. Maybe it was the sage, but it is to be seen as karma phala. Maybe it was the snake. You almost strangled me. And then I have sent an SMS to my relatives. They are going to come and get you. In 1 week's time, you have just 1 week to live. And that's when Parikshit thinks of Shuka. And Shuka doesn't come for these kinds of things, but he feels compassionate and he feels he can help him. And so he manifests and teaches in 1 week the life story of Lord Krishna and the Vedanta, interwoven into it. Even now, the Bhagavatam is taught in 1 week because of that. And for this Śukāṣṭakam also we have 1 week. And so this is, little trivia about the author, so we can enjoy the text and understand it properly in the context. And it is in a particular meter which we can appreciate when we chant it. So we will chant it and then I will explain the meter before we enter the text. One correction, the last line, which is the same in all the verses, thank God, is instead of the third word, vicharataha, I want you to make it vicharatam, plural. Bheda bhedau sapadi galitau punya pape vishirne maya mohau kshayamupagatau nashta sandeha vrittehe shabdātītam trigunarahitam prāpya tattvāvabodham nistraigunye pathi vicharatam ko vidhih ko nishedhah. Together. Bheda bhedau sapadi galitau punya pape vishirne maya mohau kshayam upagatau nashta sandeha vrittehe shabdātītam trigunarahitam prāpya tattvāvabodham nistraigunye pathi vicharatah ko vidhih ko nishedhah. If you are familiar with the works of Kalidasa, you will recognize this meter because this is a meter that was made famous by Kalidasa in this famous work called Meghaduta, the cloud messenger. The name of the meter is Mandakranta, which means slowly advancing. Yeah, very nice. Slowly advancing, that is the meaning of the word Mandakranta, which is the name given to the meter. And it is associated with a certain pathos. And not accidentally it is used in the Meghaduta, where a, lover separated from her beloved is, sending a message. So, like this, it is associated with a yearning, a longing. Very interesting. Pathos. For what? To describe Satchidananda. Yearning, to describe a person of describe people of non-yearning. What is this? A joke? No. So, what is the point here? The point is that the yearning is not for the jnāni. As I told you earlier, the jnāni is not going to be reading these verses. And it is for who? The person of who is a jignasu, a mumukshu, who wants this knowledge, who is firmly committed to this path of knowledge, to the study of oneself as the whole, as limitlessly free, for that person. And it's almost as the pathos of the meter is capturing the longing of every mumukshu and jignasu. I want to be like those that are described here. But it is a longing that goes because what the jnāni is, and the jnāni is described here, have no longing. If anything, they have a sense of belonging with everything and everyone, which makes us see that wherever there is belonging, there is no longing. Very beautiful use, clever use of the meter. And the pathos, there is no pathos, it is Satchidananda. It is that which, whose study removes all that yearning. Because every other study, every other pursuit may remove the yearning, but actually for a little time. Or rather, it morphs the yearning into something else. It's but a distraction. Only this knowledge, either talking about jnanam or the jnāni, is one and the same, because the jnāni is non-separate from the jnanam, is one with the jnanam, brahmavid brahmaiva bhavati. So it's one and the same. Talking about the jnāni is unfolding the knowledge. And so, therefore, this yearning is that one which is completely fulfilled, says the meter. The meter itself, Mandakranta, gives the promise. Because of the word Mandakranta, it assures that you will also slowly advance. Like the meter, the meaning of the meter is slowly advancing. Slowly advancing in assimilating this clarity, in this knowledge, and being one with Bhagavan. This is what it is. Very, very beautiful. In the tradition, we have different kinds of works. The most famous of them you might have heard of, Prakarana Granthaha, works that unfold Vedanta in a systematic fashion. And you can put everything in that category, most everything. Tattva Bodha, all the Bodhas, Atma Bodha, Tattva Bodha, Bodhasara, any other Bodha that may be there. Vedanta Dindima, these are all what are examples of Prakarana Grantha. Systematically, the words of the Upanishads are, talked about, but in a very systematic way from A to Z. Viveka, Vairagya, everything. And then what happens as a result of that, how to assimilate this knowledge, what are the sadhanas, everything. And this, a Prakarana Grantha, this is not. Okay? So then, if that is ruled out, then we have to see what else is there? Manana Grantha. So Prakarana Grantha unfolds the knowledge. Manana Grantha is an example of that work which reinforces what one already has studied by removing doubts that might be still there. One fine example of Manana Grantha is Advaita Makaranda. Very beautiful. Advaita Makaranda, the first line is a proposition and the second line justifies why this is correct. Tasmat. Atoham katham na Brahma. How can I not be Brahman? This being the case. Ahamasmi sadabhami. I am existent and I am self-aware. I know I am. Kadachinna aham apriyaha. The I is never an object of disgust. Even though they may be self-loath, but that self-loath is not really self-loath. It is loathing the body, the mind, everything that can be objectified. Then he concludes, Brahmaiva aham idam, aham idam Brahma Satchidananda lakshanatvat. Satchidananda lakshanam. So this is a manana grantha. It removes doubts. Connected to pramana, means of knowledge. Connected to prameya, what is to be known. Removes the doubts. And then manana grantha also, my dear friends, this work is not. Then what is left? Nididhyasana grantha. So, prakarana, manana and nididhyasana grantha. The purpose of this teaching, these 8 verses, are to remove any kind of habitual orientations that comes in the way and creates a gap between what one knows and how one behaves. This is in fact a nagging problem. And this is what one wonders. How many 1-week retreats? How many Christmas retreats? How many 2-week retreats? How many, what else is coming up? 7-week retreats. Yeah. How many holiday retreats, Thanksgiving, every long weekend, we spent longing for this knowledge. That's why it's called long weekend. And, I still get angry. I still get upset. I still don't behave, in character with what is described. Is it because I don't know? You cannot say you don't know. You can never say you don't know if you have come here even to one class. I forbid you to say I don't know. Oh, but I can't even say I know. Okay, you can say I'm in the process of knowing. Yeah, I'm in the process of knowing. So, therefore, how does one remove this gap, a Grand Canyon-esque gap between the knowledge and the behavior which comes out of old habits? Wrong habits, actually. Also called samskaras. What is the English definition of samskara? Samskar or the other. Yeah. That is what is the origin of these habits. Some old hurt, some old habit, something. So habitually one seems to get angry. Habitually one seems to be argumentative. Habitually one seems to be, not walking, the talk. And granthas such as this one, Dhanyashtakam, Kaupina Panchakam, Manisha Panchakam, etc. They are there to dispel the last refuges of this lurking duality which comes out in the form of habitual orientations. That's why it is called a contemplative work, Nididhyasana Grantha. Very beautiful. So this is to again put it in context to know what is its purpose and what to expect. This is a contemplative work, octet. So it begins very interestingly. Again another paradox. It begins with the word bheda. Bheda means what? Difference. And what are we about? Hello, show some signs of life. No. Yeah. What are we? And this is not the time to say, I'm asking a question. Nice try though. Yeah. So, The first word means difference. What is this work about? Non-difference, exactly. This is not about difference, this is about non-difference. Look at that paradox. So the first word starts with Bheda. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, when the teaching starts, it starts with a negative particle, ashocyan anvashochastvam. And there is a big discussion in the Shankara Bhashya, pages after pages, paragraph after paragraph, if not pages after pages. Why should we begin on a negative note? We should begin on a positive note. Why you have to begin on a negative note? What's wrong with you? Shubh shubh bolo, we say in Hindi, talk on an auspicious note. Here also, Bheda is inauspicious. Bheda is what we relegate, outside this room. We are all about what? Abheda, non-difference. And yet, a very celebrated work on non-duality. A very revered author on non-duality starts his work with Bheda. And the question is, kimartham, katham, why? Because who is this again reading this? The one who has a great shraddha, regard, devotion, faith for this knowledge, in this knowledge, but the one who is unable to get past the Bheda. Correct? And how is Advaita internalized? Advaita is internalized by ratifying the Bheda. Correct? Yeah. What do you mean by ratifying the Bheda? Look at this. You say, I have ajnānam. All right? I don't know. I suffer from self-ignorance. And therefore what? I have to go to a teacher. And who am I? Shishya. Who is the teacher? Guru. Already there is Bheda. Guru, Shishya, Bheda. Guru is perched somewhere, And then Shishya is sitting down. And then Shishya falls at the feet of the Guru. Guru is not falling at the feet of the Shishya. There is Bheda. So Bheda is very much, ratified. In fact, it is through the Bheda alone. You don't dismiss the Bheda. Through the Bheda alone, the Abheda is understood as oneself. Because this whole Jagat, this whole world is full of Bheda, 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 Bheda everywhere. So many bodies in the room, each body different from another body, another body, another body. Each mind different from one mind, different mind, that mind, this mind. Bheda. Each tree different from another tree, each fruit different from another fruit. Everything Bheda, 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 Bheda. Everywhere Bheda, here a Bheda, there a Bheda, everywhere Bheda, Bheda. And what is the Jignasu told to do? What is the first step in the teaching? It is not different. It is all Ishvara. Correct? So Ishvarizing the universe, seeing everything as not a discrete entity but Ishvara. It starts with Bheda. So you Ishvarize it and then you see it as an extension of yourself, you being non-separate from Ishvara. And so, knowledge of non-duality starts with a nod to duality as Ishvara. That is why the first word is Bheda. Through the gateway of Bheda, by learning to understand Bheda as a vibhuti, as a glory of Ishvara, we are already close to Abheda. It is not a step that can be bypassed. Sometimes people go, I want pure Brahman, pure Vedanta. I don't want Ishvara to come in the middle. Arey, what do you mean come in the middle? Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam. Understand what is this Ishvara. Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam means all that is here is pervaded by Ishvara. No, but then, in Pralaya also there is Ishvara, but in an unmanifest form. Pralaya means what? time of dissolution, non-difference. No, I want to wait for pralaya before gaining this knowledge. And we have to say, Ayushman Bhava, may you live long and happy. What to tell the person? I want to wait till dissolution to gain this knowledge. Kya baat hai? What are you going to, how are you going to do that? How are you going to wait till dissolution for gaining this knowledge? It's like one of those elephant jokes, How does the elephant climb up a tree? It's a children's joke. It sits on an acorn and waits for it to grow. All right, now the elephant is on the tree, right? How does the elephant get down from the tree? It sits on a leaf and waits for autumn to come. It is as ridiculous as saying, I'm going to wait for pralaya because I want pure experiential Brahman. Who is going to teach you? Guru has succumbed to pralaya. You as Shishya are also not there. Succumbed to pralaya. No classroom is there. Either the new auditorium or the old auditorium, neither are there. And where are you going to learn? How are you going to learn? Therefore, the word Veda here is very auspicious because it is a prayer. Ishvara. Ishvara, who is the creator of as though Veda, is a beautiful prayer. A prayer can be overt or covert. Shuka is a writer par excellence. He doesn't have to engage in Shri Harim Paramanandam Upadeshtaram Ishwaram Vyapakam Sarva Bhutanam Karanam Tam Namamiham. That's a nice prayer. He doesn't have to go that route. Every work has to begin with a prayer. And the word Veda here, which is the opposite of what we think we are. This is a mind-shattering, mind-blowing work in more ways than one. All the categories that one has in the mind are nicely going to be twisted and shattered. They are going to just explode on their own if you just allow it. And that is the whole point. And so therefore, a work of non-duality starts on the note of Veda, very interesting note. It is a prayer because the one that is manifest as though manifest as all is being saluted here right at the outset. Then what is this abheda? Bheda plus bheda, bhedah cha, abhedascha, bheda, bhedau. So what is this abheda? We will see that tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadagya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.